happens. Proceed, Mr. Yates.
All right. Well, if y'all haven't already gotten started, want to go ahead and welcome everybody to the Montgomery County MUD number 46 Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, May the 19th, 2021. As in prior meetings, I'll briefly go through the remote meeting procedures and perform a roll call. So to begin with, I need to remind everyone the meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we'll continue the practice of having a roll call to vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely this evening so that we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I'll perform a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name and your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with our board of directors, Mark Vonderow.
Present.
Margie Podjolinski. Is Margie in the meeting?
Yeah, present.
Okay. Deidre Eklund.
Here.
George Newman.
Here.
Scott Custer. Is Scott in the meeting?
Guess not.
Okay, I did not hear Scott. All right, Scott is absent. So we'll move on to Woodlands. We do have a quorum, so we'll move on to Woodlands Water staff. Jim Stinson.
Present.
Mike Mooney.
Present.
Maureen Bourgeois.
Present.
Jeannie Scott.
Present.
Shelley Lawson Kennedy.
I'm here.
Anyone else from Woodlands Water in the meeting? Okay, we'll move on to San Jacinto River Authority staff. Ron Kelly.
Present.
Ed Shackelford.
Present.
Chris Meeks.
Present.
Matt Corley.
Present.
Anyone else from the River Authority in the meeting?
No, sir.
All right, we'll move on to MUD 46 consultants. Do we have any MUD 46 consultants in the meeting? Okay, moving on to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public present in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well. All right, Maureen, does that cover everybody who appears to be logged in?
That's everybody.
All right, that will complete our roll call. Mark, I'll hand it back over to you to begin the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We have no comments from the floor. Nobody is online who wants to speak. So we'll go to number 3, consider an act on adjustments. And that's Mike Mooney.
This is Mike, and nothing for this from 46 this month.
Good. Hello.
Okay.
This is Jeannie, and I don't have any either.
Okay, I was fixing to call Jeannie's name. So good. Thank you, Jeannie. We'll move on to number 4. I don't know if that's Jim Stinson and myself or it's back on the agenda. So do you have anything to add about Stacy Haynes at the address shown?
I think I don't have any new anything to share today with you. No, I've had numerous discussions with this resident, but I don't have anything to share with you today.
I too have had several discussions, and some were fun, some were not so fun. Some of them would probably make Deidre smile. Come on, Deidre, smile. anyway,
But I will report that I don't see a need to carry it to next month. So Board Secretary, can we remove it from next month's meeting?
Sure thing.
took the words right out of my mouth there, Mr. Stinson. Appreciate it. Moving right along, the consent agenda, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Do we need to pull anything out and discuss anything specific?
I just have a grammatical change on the regular agenda for the minutes.
Okay.
It's in item 12. Under the irregular agenda, it's like the fourth line down where it says the township has. It should say the township has approached SGRA, not as. So that's it.
Do we need to vote on that separate, or can we do it?
Just include it, Mark.
Okay. I need a motion for the consent agenda with the corrections that Director Deidre Eklund made, and 5, 6, 7, and 8.
This is Margie. I'll make that motion for you, Mark.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I'll second that.
Thank you, sir. I'll now call the roll. Mark Vonderow, aye. Margie Podjulinski,
Aye.
Deidre Eklund,
Aye.
George Newman.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Moving along, number 9, report from the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division.
Good evening, directors. This is Matt Corley with the San Jacinto River Authority. On page 17 of your packet should be the Woodlands Monthly Operations Report. I'll highlight the groundwater surface water blend ratio fiscal year to date. Our groundwater is at 48%, surface water 52%. Again, that's fiscal year to date, running from September 2020 to April of 2021. Be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the report. If there are no questions, I know Mr. Kelling has some updates regarding GMA 14.
Good afternoon, board members. Just want to remind y'all that the proposed DFCs from GMA 14 were issued last month. There is a 90-day review comment period, which will end about middle of July. And that Lone Star will be conducting a public hearing either this June the 7th, 8th, or 9th. They haven't told us which day, but they said it'll be one of those days. Once we find out which day, we'll give that information to everybody, to Jim, and he can forward it to all the directors. One thing we just like to note is that I know that y'all are considering a resolution on your agenda for this this week, this month. It's great. Written comments, letters, that's all great. But it also sometimes is more impactful to have somebody go to the meeting and personally show up and talk to them and give them your 3 minutes of comments. Sometimes that's more impactful than words on paper, because you have to assume that they're going to read the paper. So anyway, that just what we want to provide. Anybody have any questions on that? If not, I think Ed has one item.
Thank you, Ron. This is Ed Shackelford with San Jacinto River Authority. In your packet today, under the GM report, there's a summary of the Trinity River water supply option. There have been, this is a 50,000 acre foot water supply option that would come into play along about 2050. But we need to be planning going forward. And the reason we're bringing this up is there are some contract terms that come into effect at the end of this year and by 2028. And so we need to be able to make decisions on whether to retain this water supply option and turn it into an actual contract for water or dismiss it. We've been talking with the other MUDs. We've presented to the trustees. It has a small financial impact to maintain the water right or the water option. And then ultimately there would be a construction project to bring water out of Lake Livingston into the headwaters of Lake Conroe and then discharge the water. So for use. Anybody have any questions? I know that was pretty abbreviated. The summary in Jim's report gives you a little more specifics, facts, if you will, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure, I have a question. On your diagram, it shows the project, and it talks about a project cost of $200 to $300 million.
Yes, sir.
And there's a line that comes off of, I guess it's a tributary.
If you don't mind, I'll show the screen so everybody can see it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Can you all see that?
Yes.
The different colored lines?
Yeah.
So these are the different routes that are possible to bring the water from Lake Livingston into Lake Conroe.
So I had two questions on that pink line. Is that the $200 million line? And is it going to be a seasonal flow that you can bring down that way, or is it?
That's just one of the route options that the consultant considered. Mm-hmm. I'm not exactly certain which route they priced at 200 million versus 300 million.
I can probably help on that. That pink line is probably the low end cost. To bring a pipeline from Huntsville, where Lake Livingston, the upper waters of Lake Livingston, down to the actual lake would be closer to 300, if not more.
Mark Bondero, when's this supposed to happen? 2028?
So by the end of this year, we need to convert our water supply option contract to a service area agreement and then start pursuing an interbasin transfer. By 2028, we're supposed to convert that service area agreement to a water supply contract or an agreement. And then after that, decide when to build the pipeline. And questioned by one of the other MUDs was about how long does it take to pull all this together? And our best guess at this point is 10 years. So if water needs to be in place by 2050, we would need to start working the engineering, the acquisition, the right-of-way acquisitions, and the construction starting in 2040.
Mark Bondero, where are we at with the other MUDs and the trustees of the Woodlands Water Agency? Where are we at with that? And I don't know if y'all need to answer it, or does Jim need to answer that? So
this is presented for information only. It will need to be acted on and give feedback in the next month or two. I think the consensus unofficially has been it's probably this needs to be supported, but will at some point, after you have a chance to digest it, think about it, we'll have try to do in some way get feedback from the MUDs and the trustees on how to officially transfer that message to the San Jacinto River Authority.
Okay. And I thought our PowerPoint presentation was on the Google Drive. It does not appear to me. So Jim, I will get that to you so you can upload it.
Very good.
Ed, this is George.
Yes,
I was
sir.
able to watch your presentation on the trustees meeting.
Yes.
And so I feel like, I've seen this, but you know, I know you've done this presentation several times for the other MUDs and it's getting old, but you know, if I hadn't called in earlier, I'd feel like I was being shortchanged.
Well, I'm happy to go through it if y'all would like. It's kind of, some of the MUDs have said, yes, we want the full-blown conversation, and some are happy just to read the summary and then make a decision in a month or so. But either way, so would you like to see the whole thing?
I would like to see the whole thing.
Okay. So here's the issue. Montgomery County is growing. I looked at, and I mentioned this to Ron earlier today in an email. I looked at Representative Metcalf's the various bills he authored this year and in this legislative session, and there were at least 10 or 11 MUDs that were created by the legislature, which means additional population. Now, granted, that doesn't mean they're coming into the woodlands, but Montgomery County, as you all know it, as a whole, is growing. So there's going to be a need for additional long-term water supplies. This water supply option is 50,000 acre feet, roughly 45 million gallons a day. And we've had this contract since 2013. We've been paying fees on it since 2013. Here's the population projections. They're coming from the Water Development Board through the Region H water planning. And they're very similar to, you know, you've heard about the GMA and their regional planning. It's a 5-year cycle, and every 5 years they update the data. So if you look at 2020 under the Montgomery municipal category, population's projected, or the water demand is projected to be 101,000 acre feet. Lake Conroe annual yield is approximately 100,000 acre feet. And that's made up of, you know, part SGRA water, part Houston water. So as you look across this slide, you see that demand growing. And if you think about what Lone Star is trying to do with their DFCs, if you assume that they're going to approve the 97,000 acre feet withdrawal from the aquifer, that plus the 100,000 from the lake generates approximately 200,000 acre feet of water. So by 2050, and you look at the total down at the bottom of 198.6, there's going to be water demands beyond what the aquifer and what the lake can produce. And so we've got this option contract that we either need to continue to hold or release it. And so you've seen this slide that shows the different routes that are being considered. You see that the projected cost for the construction is $200 to $300 million. Takes about 10 years to build it. So here are some of the things that we need to do between now and 2028 to perfect this into a full-blown water supply agreement. By the end of this year, create a service area agreement with the TRA, Trinity River Authority. We've got to get an interbasin transfer permit to be able to bring water from the Lake Livingston watershed to the Conroe watershed. That's estimated to be $1 to $2 million. It could be more than that because it's more legal activities than engineering activities. And then by April of 2028, we've got to convert that service area agreement to the water supply contract. Now, we won't be taking water by 2028, so we'll be paying a reservation fee of approximately $1.5 million per year. And that's where the next numbers start to come in. So overall, all the customers within the SGRA system, raw water and finished water customers, would be paying for this cost. And so that includes Exxon, that includes Mobil, or ExxonMobil, it includes Chevron, and it would include all the GRP participants. So on the GRP participants, from now through 2027, the estimated cost is about 1 cent per 1,000 gallons. And so if you consider an average user to be about 10,000 gallons, it costs them roughly 10 cents per month to perfect this contract. And then after 2028 or beginning in 2028, to pay the reservation fee for the water so that it is still available to us when we need it and when we complete the construction. Just to maintain the water reservation is roughly 25 cents per month per household. Again, relying on the approximately 10,000 gallons per month. So that's where the cost to maintain the contract comes in. And then here's what we're asking for is either a letter from the MUD with maybe all of the director's signature, or, well, that would be preferred, or someone come and make a presentation to the board by our August meeting, which is the fourth Thursday of the month, to indicate your all's interest in either keeping the contract or terminating the contract. And if we terminate, another entity is going to pick up the 50,000 acre feet, and we may, I don't want to be a doomsday guy, but there are only so much water out there that's available for acquisition. And when this is gone, there's probably not many other sources short of building another lake, and that takes 40, 50 years. Any questions? George, did that get it all from the trustee meeting?
I think so.
Is there a chance to get a larger amount of water?
No.
I think that's all.
City Houston has all the rest wrapped up. This is the only piece that the TRA has that they're willing to part with that the city hasn't gathered.
Isn't the city of Houston building their own pipeline over to Lake Houston?
Yes. Well, it's a pipeline canal system. Excuse me. And it's called the Loose Bio Project. It's programmed to pump between 400 and 600 million gallons a day out of the Trinity River into Lake Houston. And that's to feed parts of Houston, the north part of Harris County, the west part of Harris County, and North Fort Bend areas.
And is that essentially coming from Lake Livingston?
Yes. It's coming out of the Trinity River downstream of the dam.
So how many, you said, so how many acre feet is that?
400 million gallons a day.
That's about 440,000 acre feet.
Per year?
Yes.
That's a big number.
Well, and keep in mind, Livingston's about 1 million acre feet annual yield.
And all of it is essentially taken except for 50,000?
That the TRA is willing to give up. You know, they've got other water that they have. They're keeping it up for North Texas.
Okay.
And they also have some customers downstream that they have to serve.
Right.
So we're already paying for this contract, right? How is it showing up in our water bill?
It's a portion comes in raw water, and then there is a raw water cost to the GRP, and it's built into the GRP rates, and then GRP is part, and that gets into some of Chris Meeks's presentation after me. It gets into the cost of water service to the woodlands and the muds.
So we have an agreement with the city of Houston to be buying future purchase of water, right? For, I wanted to say it was $1 million a year that we pay the city of Houston. Is that correct?
The muds? The township?
The SJRA.
Great. The SJRA has a 80-year water contract with the city of Houston to purchase their 2/3 water in Lake Conroe. That cost right now, the reservation fee is somewhere between $1.5 million and $2 million a year. To buy, when we actually start buying the water, that thing will be in the tens of millions of dollars per year.
So is there potential for trading that water for Trinity water?
I don't know if you know Jim Adams, but Jim Adams tried 10 years before he passed away to try to make that trade. The answer is probably not.
I see.
Well, and the other part of it is by the time we actually put this water into use, the Houston water will already be being used.
And that's the cheaper water, the Lake Conroe water.
The Lake Conroe water owned by the SJRA is the cheapest of surface water. The next expensive is the city of Houston's water.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering those questions.
Happy to help. Any other questions?
What is, I'm guessing that this 50,000 acre feet from the Trinity is going to be more expensive than the Lake Conroe Houston water.
No, well, actually the TRA's current raw water use fee is less than the city of Houston's.
But you got to factor in the building of the system and getting the permits and the investment.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, the SJRA would be responsible for that, so that drives up the cost. Yes.
Very interesting. Big decisions.
Thank y'all.
All right. Anything else? Are we ready for our attorney's report? Or hello, Brian.
This is Brian. Do we also need to cover the budget report?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, 10. Yes.
All right, let me share my screen real quick. Figure out how to do this thing real quick. Okay.
Poor Chris was feeling left out.
Well, I had to go check the agenda because I figured maybe there was a change I didn't know before I started talking, and the 9th time, but just as equally as important. So let me start at the beginning. So before we get started in the budget presentation, there is no action needed tonight. This is informational only. Some of y'all have been through this process before. We present the budget in May, which we're doing today. And the final approval and vote is not until the 2nd week of August, whenever the trustees vote on it. So roughly laying it out, May we present it, ask any questions that y'all have. June, we further discuss if there's any further discussion. July, any further discussion, the MUD's director trustee how to vote at the August board meeting or trustees meeting, final or approval is hopefully achieved. So what I've done in this presentation is I've kind of flipped it around from previous years, meaning rather than go through all the details and then get to the punchline is at the beginning with all the details after that. So if you go onto the Google Drive, you'll see that we have asked Shelley to upload a budget package, which includes the PowerPoint presentation, an executive summary, and all the detailed budgets for the R&R, O&M, all those good line items that you're going to be looking at. This presentation is just a high-level overview of everything in there on the summary basis, if you will. Last item to bring up is the GRP Review Committee has not voted on their rates. They're hopefully going to do that Monday, May 24th, just a few days from now. The review committee has been discussing reducing the proposed rate that was proposed to them in April. They're looking to potentially reduce that by 4 cents. If the GRP review committee does reduce that rate, proposed rate, then we will issue a revised Woodlands Division budget, since the GRP rates do impact the Woodlands Division budget. Shouldn't be any cost increase, but it's more of an FYI. If we do issue a revised budget, that's one of the main things being revised. So without further ado, hitting the punchline first. What you'll see when you're going through the budget and later on the presentation as you review it, demands are flat. As the Woodlands was growing, obviously you'd see more water sales, more sewer sales, but over the last 3 to 4 years, Woodlands is not growing. A lot of other conservation methods and everything else, you're actually seeing where water consumptions are staying pretty stable for the last 2 to 3 years. We are proposing a 65% groundwater, 35% surface water. That blend ratio keeps the GRP plant running at 12 million gallons a day, just like it has been the last couple of years. We are proposing a 5% water and wastewater rate increase, primarily due to the ongoing renewal of the systems that we've chatted about, as well as an increase in R&R funding by $500,000. And of course, the O&M and emergency reserves are fully funded. So next couple.
Are you supposed to have something on the screen, Chris?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm not seeing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can anybody see my screen?
I can.
I can.
It just says water system. I can't.
Let me.
Okay, let me try this. Okay. Issue here.
Okay, you good?
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
All righty. So the next slide we're going to look at shows the proposed improvement.
Now that's good.
All right, there you go. Just a little bug in the system. So this is showing the wholesale water for the last 5 years, leading up to, on the far right, you see the proposed FY 2022 rates. So what you'll see on FY 22 is the proposal to adjust the wholesale water rate to $2.37, which is a 5% increase or 11 cents per 1,000 gallons. Similar slide, just covering on the wastewater rates. Same previous 5 years. On the far right, you're going to see the proposed FY 22, which increases the sewer rate, wastewater rate to $4.85, increase of 5% or 23 cents per 1,000 gallons.
Okay.
Last item to cover is the GRP rate. So what you're seeing here on the very bottom in the light blue is a GRP fee, also known as the surface water conversion fee and the blended fee. I say that because I know different people know about different things, but they're all the same. And so if you look on the bottom right, you'll see the proposed FY 22 rate for the 65-35 blend of $3.07 per 1,000 gallons. That is the rate that at the end of the day, if the GRP review committee changes the 2 rates that you see above that, reduces those by 4 cents, that blended rate will also be reduced down to $3.03. That's the high level. Everything after this kind of gets into the how we develop the budget. As you can see here, the process that we have, high level summary and different topics. And at this point, I'll ask, I can go on or we can stop there and y'all can review the documents and ask any questions you have. So would you like to proceed?
Chris, this is George.
Yes, sir.
Last month, you talked about proposing I guess y'all had a back of the envelope cost estimate for a 50-50 mix of groundwater and surface water. And I guess I was thinking y'all were going to come back with that cost.
That's a good point. This is Chris again. Before we can come back with that cost, because that cost was based off the FY21 budget, which is currently approved. Before we can come back with a potential cost for 50-50 blend, first thing is GRP review committee has to approve the budget. Then there's some internal policies and procedures that need to be looked at, reviewed. We have to talk to other participants as well. So far, we've just talked to the Woodlands themselves, but there could be other GRP participants that may be looking at additional water. And so there's a few steps also that need to occur after we have the rate. So as soon as the GRP review committee starts approves the rate, we can start doing the other items, and then in the future bring back that rate for a 50-50 blend. And just one thing to add is when the 50-50, if the Woodlands division goes to a 50-50 blend, the O&M budget does change, but usually it's an offset because I'm reducing oil changes, electrical costs, so on and so forth on the water side, and I'm increasing alkalinity. But normally it's a wash at the end of the day. It's not too much of a swing to cause a Woodlands division rate increase. And when we bring back that cost to go to 50-50, at that time, I'll bring that cost back as well.
Okay.
And if I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and if y'all do happen to have any questions that come up where you would like to go into further detail with something, if you'll let Jim know, we're asking the Jim's the clearinghouse, that way duplicate questions can be weeded out. But please send any questions to Jim, and we'll answer them.
Chris, this is Mark Monroe. Is that 50-50 rates? Is that something you can have done by next month's meeting?
No. And I'll let, Ron developed the first one. He's got the process down pretty good. So I'll pass that to him for insight and guidance.
Yeah, I need to walk through this very gingerly because of lawsuits.
Yes, sir.
We need to wait until the review committee takes action on the GRP budget and the rate, and then our board takes action on the budget and rate. Once that happens and we know what those are, then we have to work on a preliminary number of what that extra surface water cost is. Then we have to go to all 7 entities that we deliver surface water to and find out if anybody wants extra surface water and how much. Then once we know how much surface water we need to provide, then we need to recalculate what that rate is, go back to everybody and say, okay, now that we know what everybody wants, are you willing to pay for it at this rate? And then that rate is going to have to be confirmed by a rate consultant. So this is going to be a few months before that process happens.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions on item number 10, the Woodlands Division budget that I tried to skip? Okay. Let's go to number 11 now, Mr. Yates.
This is Brian. Thank you, Mark. So under the attorney's report, been providing a brief update on the legislative session. We're down to 2 weeks to go. It's pretty much 24/7 at the Capitol right now as they race toward the end of May. I think I mentioned in one of the earlier meetings, there's only around a 15% or so bill passage rate. So we're really in the final stages of that weeding out process. If there are particular bills that board members have an interest in, I'll encourage you again to take a look at that bill tracker document that was sent out before, I believe it was the last round of meetings. That tracker document has a hyperlink to the bills on the Texas Legislature Online. The Texas Legislature Online site has a real-time tracker of all the bills that have been introduced during the session. So you can see exactly where they are and when they got there, whether they're in a committee, whether they've been voted out, whether they're on the floor, whether they're on the governor's desk. So that's a great way for you to get real-time updates on bills. and language, not just where they are, but if language has been updated, it will show language that was in the bill as it was introduced, if it was modified coming out of the committee hearing, et cetera. So that's a great tool for you to keep track of bills of interest for you. One bill I have been mentioning to all the boards this month is House Bill 1118. That bill provided some much needed clarification for the cybersecurity training requirement legislation that was passed in 2019. You may recall back when that original legislation was passed, there was some uncertainty as to who exactly the training requirements applied to. The language seemed to indicate, the plain language of the statute seemed to indicate that it was only applicable to folks that actually had access to public databases or computer systems that would be at risk of a cybersecurity threat, which makes perfect common sense. Unfortunately, the entity that was tasked with implementing that legislation, the Texas Department of Information Resources, took an extremely broad interpretation of the statutory language to essentially require all public officials, in this case MUDs, to have to complete the training, regardless of whether they had any access to computer systems that would be at risk of a cybersecurity threat. So that's why why all MUD directors have been completing this training over the last year and a half. The legislature has now essentially overrode that interpretation by the Texas Department of Information Resources with House Bill 1118. The legislation makes it clear that only those appointed officials or elected officials, in this case, MUD directors, that have access to a local government computer system or database and that use that system or database to perform at least 25% of their duties are required to take the training on an annual basis. Now, employees of the Woodlands certainly required to continue to comply with the training requirements. MUD directors, for just about every MUD, it's very cut and dry. They are not required to complete the training. Woodlands is a little bit unique in that you do receive a number of your documents electronically, be it board packets or supplemental materials, et cetera, through Woodlands Water and their electronic database that's supported by Google. I think the safe recommendation and what I've been telling boards in the Woodlands so far this week is, when in doubt, go ahead and complete the training. It's not too painful, and it takes away any uncertainty as to should I not. If in doubt, just complete the training. However, if there are particular directors who feel quite certain that they are not using a Woodlands Water system or database to perform at least 25% of their duties, you don't need to complete the training. The training is a director-based requirement, not a district-based requirement. So if you, as a director, based on your particular facts and circumstances, are confident that you do not meet that threshold, you don't need to complete the training. But there's any number of circumstances among our 55 directors or 50 directors now to try to give a one-size-fits-all recommendation on that 25% threshold. Also, keep in mind, as we talked about when the original legislation was passed, that right now there is no compliance penalty or failure to comply penalty. That could change in the future, but right now there is not a penalty component to this training requirement. So take that for what it's worth as you evaluate whether or not you're subject to complete the training. But that's about it on House Bill 1118. happy to answer any questions. And otherwise, that'll conclude my attorney's report for this evening.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions before we move on? Okay, Mr. Stinson, number 12, branch crossing construction of a new ditch repair and contract.
Go ahead, Mike Mooney.
That's probably mine. Contractor mobilized middle of last month. We're about 95% complete with the dirt. Riprap is also about 95% complete. I anticipate, unless the rains have hurt us, I haven't been over there this week, that we will be finished by the end of the month and we should get our first and final pay estimate. It's really wet. Don't know how it held up during the rains over the weekend and the last few days. So maybe by the end of the week, if it's dry enough to get back in there, we'll go back there and double check. But barring any washouts or erosions, we should have the project punched out and completed by the end of the month.
That's great. That's great. All right. Number 13, consider an act on a resolution regarding the desired future conditions for the aquifer management in Montgomery County.
I can give you some opening remarks on this. This was a kind of a carryover topic from last month. There were a few MUDs that had put together a resolution last month and agreed to pause and give time to put together a document that we thought could be supported by the trustees and all of our 10 MUDs and maybe some MUDs adjacent to the Woodlands community. I know George Newman has spent a lot of time and effort working on this with several other directors, but it was approved unanimously by the trustees, and the MUDs prior to your meeting today have all supported and approved it. So George, would you like to also make some comments on this?
I think that the structure has been greatly improved. The wording's been greatly improved. 6 MUDs participated in working on it. Jim has given his input, and also I think Brian has given it a review. It's been shared with some of the other MUDs in the area. I know it's been shared with MUD 386. I think they have a similar item on their agenda for next week. The several other MUDs are being contacted that are in the farther southeast part of the county, so that, you know, it's not just a Woodlands effort. So I think, you know, y'all's support would be greatly appreciated and helpful. And if we can have an environment where all of the MUDs approve the resolution, it should have more impact on the Lone Star District than just a few. So I'm game for questions.
Are you game for compliment of your hard work and helping get this resolution put together?
Well, thank you.
All right. Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to motion that this board approves the resolution for feedback on the DFCs.
Just really quick, can we send in comments if we have markups? Are you taking suggestions?
You can, I think you can do that. It's been through a lot of gyrations already. And, you know, Jim, I don't know how much, I guess you can do a markup now and, you know, approve it verbally and get that markup incorporated.
Yeah, I don't know about going back to the MUDs that have already acted on it, but if you've got, I welcome your comments, and we can take it under advisement with this MUD, and MUD 30 6 is after your mud.
So really the way it should work, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but shouldn't Mud 46 be given feedback, you know, in this 90-day period to the Lone Star District and GMA 14? And we don't really need to have everybody have the exact perfect same wording.
You do not, absolutely do not. I think the objective was to strive to get something that could be supported by all the MUDs, and there is no requirement that it be exactly the same at all.
So how's that for an answer, Deidre?
Okay, do you want me to verbally tell you what my suggested changes are?
Sure.
Okay, so I want to say, like, right after we have the statement for the, I don't know if everybody has it up. I don't have it on my computer up. After we have the statement of the proposed DFCs, that paragraph right underneath it, could it be added to the end of that sentence that the total allocation 97,000 acre feet? That's the proposed DFC. It's totaling the 33 and the 64. Is that what I was understanding?
That is correct.
Okay, could we just like add that total and just like put parentheses around it and say that's the proposed DFC, because then we refer to it later on so that I know that it's that bigger number. And then we say this resolution recommends that, it's in the next paragraph, we say this resolution recommends that a responsible DFC proposal be adopted by GMA 14. Can we use harder language than recommends, or is it all we can do is recommend?
What word are you thinking about?
I don't know. I don't know the harder demands.
We could say we demand. We could. And look, I'm here to serve at your pleasure. Y'all tell me what direction you want to go, and I will go there.
I mean, I think they're demanding in their meetings.
You got that right.
I don't have a problem with demanding. I think we should lead, and I think what we're discussing right now is great. We need to tell them what we want. It's our board. We can do what we want to do. You know, I mean, let's.
The reality is, well, that I understand and appreciate exactly your comments. These are intended to go over in a package. And if one resolution has some minor tweaks different from the others, I don't know how much the impact is going to be, because my hunch is they're probably not going to read each one of them. Yeah, it'll be part of the official record. So if somebody goes back and reads it at a later date, it'll be there. But we're here to serve whatever your desire is, and we'll make sure it happens.
Yeah, that's just a suggestion. I didn't know if maybe recommends was used because of some other instances, or maybe it'll come across a little bit better. The next paragraph, there just needs to be a comma after agencies. It's just comma agencies and organizations. And then my final comment is in the very last paragraph of that first page, is where it says, whereas further irreversible subsidence will cause even greater exposure of homes and businesses in Montgomery County. Where it says to yet more flooding, I just thought maybe it should say during future flooding events, or during potential future flooding events.
And I'm going to confess that I reviewed the document somewhat, but the meat of it was prepared by a group of MUD directors. So I'm going to defer approving, you know, these changes. I've supported if that's what the board supports. Absolutely. I don't know that I find any reason to object to any. Brian, do you want to weigh in from any legal perspective? Are we getting in an area that needs legal counsel?
This is Brian. I think, this board has discretion to modify the text of the resolution. You're the ones who are going to be signing it as approving it. So if you want a quote unquote customized form of the resolution instead of the boilerplate that everybody else is doing, you've got complete discretion to do that.
All right, I just thought we were just to review and comment. I'm so used to reviewing and commenting.
You can. I think the real meat is the last 3 items on the second page. That's really what we're resolving to do, or resolving to say.
Yeah, and those were the only comments that I had.
I don't have a problem adding them.
I support adding Deidre's comments.
Okay.
So
is it appropriate to make a motion to accept this or approve this resolution with Deidre's changes?
Yes, as amended, absolutely.
Do you want to restate your motion, George? Or go ahead.
I motion.
Either as amended or with her comments.
As amended by Deidre, I motion that we approve this resolution as amended by Deidre Eklund. Please.
This is Mark Vondereau. I will second that motion. Is there any more discussion before I call a vote on Deidre's recommendations?
They weren't demands, they were recommendations.
So you are going to use the word demand?
We are using it, right?
Yes, ma'am. I support you wholeheartedly. It's our board. We can demand or not demand. So at this time, I will call the vote. Mark Vondereau, aye. Deidre Eklund,
aye.
Margie Podjalinsky,
Aye.
And George Newman.
Aye.
All right, that is great. Thank you much. Number 14. Storm drain markers.
We have over the years, our MUDs have supported community entities like the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and others in putting markers on storm inlets in the MUD district to minimize putting waste and other things down the storm drain. The Woodlands Township Environmental Division has received a lot of requests recently from volunteers wanting to do this. So I have this on each MUD's agenda, recommending that you allocate $1,000 out of your storm drain or storm sewer maintenance budget to purchase markers and adhesives for these community volunteer projects.
This is Mark Vondereau. I will make a motion that we allocate $1,000 for the drain markers for these community volunteer projects.
This is Margie. I second.
Okay, second by Margie. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the vote. Mark Vondereau, aye. Margie Podjalinsky.
Aye.
Deidre Eklund. You're on mute, Deidre.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And George Newman.
Aye.
All right, thank you. 15, prioritize 2021 goals for the March meeting special that we had, our special meeting we had in March. Is there anything we need to discuss about that?
I had intended that we would have kind of the summary of the information that had been submitted. I don't know if you have access to it to help with the discussion, but George, you may have an idea of how to move forward.
I actually have it called up. It's in the April mud packet on page 10 and 11. And I can share that if y'all will let me. Is that visible?
It is.
It's working. There it is.
So these are the comments that I had sent in, and on the next page are the ones that Deidre had sent in.
It went away.
Say that again?
I don't see it anymore.
Oh.
Yeah, we're looking at a piece, a canyon of some kind.
Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
I moved it over to my main screen. I guess.
Now we don't see anything, George. Well, we can't see it.
It's there now, George. It came back.
It came back.
Coming up.
Okay. I have one comment on the list that I had, and I'd like to delete item number 1. It, you know, after the SJRA gave their feedback on potential, I guess, market there, it doesn't appear that there's really any potential for economic justification. So I'd like to delete item number 1 from consideration.
Was that the golf courses?
It says determine feasibility of rainwater capture / use projects to reduce groundwater demand and to reduce irrigation expense.
Right.
So I'm not sure how the best way to do this is. Do we need to review each major header?
I guess so.
Or do you want to vote on, you know, each one, or not sure?
Are we just ranking them, like order of importance?
I think what we ought to have is which ones do we want to follow up with through the year? So one of them was number 2 was improve transparency of mud management. And some of these have already been done. So for example, consider posting live links to Zoom meetings as part of the meeting agenda. That's done. Or I see it being done every month now.
Mm-hmm.
Consider posting links to MUD 46 Zoom meeting recordings. I see that posted on the web page as YouTube videos. And consider posting meeting packets on the web page. So at this point, that one's not done. Item number 3 was improve communications to MUD 46 directors. Documentation, this is a philosophical one. Documentation needed for decisions at meetings will be included in the meeting packet. Second one is be informed of content of staff filings to other government agencies. An example was the EPA risk assessment for America's Infrastructure Act. And the last one was better reporting on major projects. What's been done, what's the status, schedule versus plan. And I'm seeing some of the projects that are underway now are included in the general manager's report.
Exactly.
Okay. And Deidre, do you want to go through the ones that you'd suggested?
I can. I mean, none of them are really necessary. I just thought we were making suggestions. So just increase social media presence. And I think that that's already been done. I see the tweets going out. So I follow that. I think I just follow it more on Twitter. I don't know about Facebook. a MUDS 101 seminar for new members. I did try to find an example one, but I don't have one. But I think that that's just more geared towards new members and understanding what's going on just in these projects as a whole. Get to know everyone virtual event. I don't know how that one would come about because we would all have to have a meeting. Work toward awards at AWA and Texas Water Development Board and increased activities during a day without water. And that's not coming up until I think October or November. So it's mostly activity based, just because I thought we were supposed to come up with ideas.
You know, just because it's October doesn't mean it can't be on the list.
No, I was just stating that we wouldn't do anything with it now, be a little later.
And regarding that topic, I'm happy to get with our public information, public water awareness group and have them start brainstorming about things that we could do for the day without water. I remember the resolution you had put forward to the township, but we're happy to work on options there and implement a number of things to increase awareness about that day. I think that's a very good suggestion. And we did submit, we haven't submitted anything to AWWA, we've got kind of the Gold Star Award with the Texas Water Development Board with the Blue Legacy Award, but we did submit some stuff to, I guess it was more AWBD, and we're going to be published in one of their articles in the next month or so. With some of our response, I think, during the freeze.
Yeah, I think a lot of mine just come back to marketing. Like, is it getting out to the woodlands? If we win awards, is it going in the community magazine? Is it, is the township acknowledging it? That type of thing.
Understood.
What we could do is just turn this into a checklist, and then we have an agenda item and we just talk about it every month. Like, these are our yearly goals. Where are we on them? What other things? So it's a continuing discussion, and it just becomes a checklist.
Well, that'd sure be an easy way to do it.
I'm all about simplifying.
Are you demanding that we simplify? Hey, that's good. We can leave it on our agenda. And
well, what we can do is take the items that we've discussed today and consolidate it into some sort of a format that can be a regular item on the agenda.
I think that'd be real good.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that suggestion. Anything else on number 15? Okay, Jim, you want to continue with your general manager's report?
Yes, sir. I'm going to cover mainly items from the trustee meeting. The trustees recommended that we look at ways we might capitalize on funding from the American Jobs Plan, the Biden stimulus or infrastructure package. So we're looking at maybe hiring a professional or a consultant to help us with that. We did talk about Director Gaynor's efforts to get seated on the new San Jacinto Upper Watershed voting position on that planning group. Still hasn't happened, but we understand they're going to interview candidates for that over the next week or month or so. Hark has finalized their comments to the Lone Star Groundwater District's Phase 2 subsidence study. And they are also working on identifying recommended locations for an extensometer and additional GPS stations around Montgomery County for subsidence monitoring. I am continue to work on options for the 2 AMI poles that residents are objecting to near Forest Gate, near Lake Woodlands Drive and Woodlands Parkway and the Slash Pine area. We've actually identified a potential relocation in Forest Gate Park and Sawmill Park, but more vetting needs to be done on that through the Woodlands Township. The interlocal agreement for the Spring Creek additional analysis for detention upstream of the Woodlands has been executed, and that's going forward. The Bear Branch drainage improvement concept was that application that was driven by MUD 67 was accepted and approved by the Texas Water Development Board in first week in May. At the trustee meeting, Chris Meeks and staff presented findings from the preliminary engineering report on the Tin Man improvement. And the trustees authorized them to go forward with fine tuning. The preliminary engineering report highlighted 5 different manufacturers and concepts for the bio-trickling filter. They wanted that consultant to narrow that down to 3, no more than 3. So that's underway. And also Chris Meeks reported that an additive had shown success in other wastewater treatment operations to improve odors. So the trustees authorized him to go forward with a test on that additional additive to see if it reduced odor at wastewater plant 1. And there's a Woodlands Water Agency operational efficiency summary in your packet that Maureen and her team have worked up over the last several months. So take a look at that, please. And then George had visited with me regarding a water main break that occurred, I think, last Thursday night of last week. That the river, we had met with the River Authority, a year or so ago to develop protocols for social media notices and Facebook notices and, keeping people informed. And this one didn't quite meet the threshold that had been established at that time because the pressure dropped, didn't go below 40, and there wasn't anybody really out of water except 2 businesses, and that was for a short period of time. But in reviewing it with them, George, we've agreed that even if they don't want to post it on their social media, if we know there's been a drop in pressure that residents could detect, we're going to go ahead and post that on our Twitter feed. So,
well, there's been 2, Jim. There's been one down there at Timberwild that was either last week or week before, and the San Jacinto River Authority got on it right away, and they had it resolved within 6 hours. And I sent you some video of that one on that Timberwild. But then last Friday, the counselor at my school said they cut through her water pipe, Tackus, and they were out of water for 3 or 4 hours. So I think really any of them that happen, if we get the word out that we're aware of it, is pretty helpful to the neighbors and stuff.
Jim, on this one, I'm thinking now after the fact that there's some features of the piping system that are here. And correct me if I misunderstand, but I think I understand that there is, I'll call it a bypass. The SJRA calls it something different that enables them to block off this piece of line, the main line that they had there on Woodlands Parkway, and reroute water to the neighborhood with only a short period of time of outage. And I wouldn't have heard about it except that the outage occurred when people were getting up at 4 in the morning, of all things, to go take a shower to go to work in Houston. But, I'm thinking that there's an opportunity for a good news summary to be posted out on the webpage or on the Facebook. Tell me if I've got the concept wrong. But
I think it's not exactly that way. What we do on a major or any break is we go out, and what we do is have valves, isolation valves. We isolate the area down to the smallest number of people that will be impacted. And in this case, after isolating everybody, there were 2 businesses that were still without water, and our staff worked to get a temporary connection set up to serve those 2 businesses until the line was fixed. So it wasn't an outage for residents. There was a pressure drop, but I don't think any homeowners were ever without water. But we had 2 businesses that were without after the isolation was complete. But the isolation practices, that's typical MO for every water break, whether it's a River Authority line or a Woodlands Water Agency or Mud District line, is to get it isolated to where the fewest number of people are impacted.
The way that it was coming up on social media and on Facebook, in like the Sterling Ridge Facebook page, was kind of coming up that they were out without water. There's no water pressure. Like that's how the residents were describing it. So when that gets around.
Yeah, and if that's the case, the information we had was there was no without water. It just dropped down to 40 PSI, which we can operate at 35 PSI.
The comments I heard were that there was no water pressure in the house when they left for work. Me living in the same neighborhood, I got up later in the day and I didn't see that problem.
Well, let me just tell you, we internally are not going to let that opportunity go by in the future. If there's a break and we know that there's a drop in pressure that could be felt by homeowners, we're going to go ahead and post information on it.
I think that's a great idea, and I'm behind that 100%, because it was very, well, I don't want to say the word chaotic, but it was really interesting watching the thing down there at Timberwild and the neighbors stopping, and the water was off on both sides of the street, and it was somebody drilled through one of your pipes again, Jim. I don't know how you get out of bed in the morning, go to work and meet up with all these people drilling through the pipes. I don't know how you stand it, but that's 2 things in a week that I know of. I don't know how many more on your plate, but there's 2 that I know of.
What was the cause of the break on Woodlands Parkway?
Woodlands Parkway last week was a lack of bedding issue.
Okay.
So it cracked?
Yeah, it was a full joint. It was a 20-foot joint of PVC that actually cracked along the entire bottom. And the way it flexed, it was just sitting on clay, because anytime we do a repair, we always dig back. And in this case, it was about, I think they said 5 to 10 foot from a previous repair. And so we went back in that direction and then the other direction to get to good pipe, and we couldn't see any proper bedding.
So was that out for was it cracked for a long time before y'all went to working on it?
We see with the SCADA system, we can actually see. So what occurred was it was roughly, if memory serves, between midnight and 12:30 a.m. when additional booster pumps kicked on. Basically, it's kind of like with a fire. When the system sees that, hey, I need more water, the more booster pumps come on. And so we went back and checked to see when there was a pressure drop, when the additional booster pumps kicked on. That was roughly 12 to 12:30. We were on site about 1:30, maybe right around 2 o'clock. So my guess is that it broke right around midnight, maybe 11:30 at the latest, but it's very close to the plant. So probably closer to right around to midnight. And then it ran for about 2 hours to about 2 o'clock till we started shutting valves.
So that's really quick.
Oh yeah, something that big. Now, if you have a smaller line, like the small service lines and 2, 4, and 6-inch lines potentially, they can take a while. But that's the main line coming from the elevated storage tank into the water plant. So you're going to see it pretty quick. Plus, it's 24-inch.
All right. Any more questions on water leaks? Any more statements by Jim on the general manager's combined Woodlands Water Trustees report? Then I'm going to move to 18. Anything we want to discuss or place on future agendas? Not already discussed tonight. All right. With that being said, sometimes we have a motion to
end our meeting. Motion to adjourn.
Sometimes we don't. So if you're putting that in the form of a motion,
a motion to adjourn.
I will second that emotion. Emotion. Yeah. Hey, I like that wave. Goodbye, Ron. All right. I think it was a very good meeting, folks.
Thank you.
I will see y'all when I see y'all again.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Good evening.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome, Brian. Thank you.